Hi friends! Something strange is happening in the skies above America. One by one, international airlines are quietly disappearing from US airports. Major carriers like Lufthansa, Air France and Air Canada are cutting routes. Play Airlines has pulled out entirely. Fewer flights, emptier terminals and billions in tourism losses are stacking up. No big headlines, no dramatic announcements, just silence. Why are the world's planes flying past the United States? But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We bring you the most urgent global updates, exclusive conflict insights, and accurate forecasts you won't find elsewhere. The skies above the United States are growing noticeably quieter. International carriers, including Air France, Lufthansa, Air Canada, and Iceland's Play Airlines, are pulling out of American routes one by one. These are not symbolic adjustments, but strategic withdrawals triggered by mounting tariffs and a volatile operating environment. US trade policies, which include tariffs of 25% on Canadian and Mexican imports, 20% on Chinese goods, and 10% on a range of others, have raised the cost of doing business in the US to unsustainable levels. Routes that once linked international hubs to American cities are vanishing. Play Airlines has terminated its US operations entirely, cutting connections to Boston, New York, and Baltimore. Similarly, Air Canada has discontinued flights to 5 major US destinations and pulled out of 8 regional airports, including key border cities like Detroit and Minneapolis. These weren't seasonal routes. They were built on years of investment and long-term confidence in the US market. The collapse of these routes is creating a ripple effect. Smaller airports, particularly those that relied heavily on international traffic, are suffering. Stewart International Airport, once envisioned as a rising star in the New York area, has seen its last transatlantic flight disappear. Customs halls are now deserted and the international terminal sits idle. Businesses built around international travelers, hotels, car rental services, airport restaurants, and retail shops are reporting plunges in revenue. The losses are staggering. The US Travel Association estimates a tourism revenue shortfall of $8.5 billion in 2025 alone. Cities that invested heavily in airport upgrades and tourism marketing, like Buffalo, Tampa, and Seattle, are now watching those bets collapse. Local economies that once thrived on the presence of international visitors are now contending with empty hotel rooms and shuttered storefronts. This retreat is not rooted in nationalism or geopolitics. It's driven by basic economics. Rising costs, coupled with strict immigration policies, visa delays, and a strong dollar, have made the US less attractive to international travelers. Meanwhile, airlines are reallocating capacity to regions offering greater growth potential and fewer barriers. Carriers like Lufthansa and Air France are downsizing their US operations and redirecting resources toward Asia, Africa, and Latin America, markets that are expanding quickly. Turkish Airlines is aggressively expanding its footprint in cities like Jakarta, Mumbai, and São Paulo, bypassing American gateways entirely. Chinese airlines are prioritizing routes to Africa and Southeast Asia, while reducing flights to cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. Gulf carriers such as Emirates and Qatar Airways are also shifting their attention, increasing service to markets in Asia and Africa, while maintaining only a limited presence in the US. Their strategy is clear: invest in regions with consistent demand and cooperative regulatory environments. For the United States, this trend signals more than a loss of airline routes. It marks a decline in influence. Airports that once buzzed with global travelers now operate at a reduced pace. Cultural exchanges, academic collaborations, international conferences, and tourism are all beginning to wane. The consequences extend beyond economics. A shrinking international presence undermines US soft power and global relevance. Without meaningful changes, lower tariffs, relaxed visa rules, and restored international cooperation, the US risks being further isolated from the evolving architecture of global aviation. If this trajectory continues, by the end of 2025, US-bound international flights may decline by another 20%, potentially eliminating $10 billion in revenue. In a worst-case scenario, the US could lose up to 30% of its international traffic in the next decade, reducing once vibrant hubs to secondary status. As global airlines redraw their maps, the United States is quietly falling off them. Where international carriers once competed for landing slots in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, they are now directing their fleets toward regions with clearer policies and stronger returns. The decision isn't driven by emotion or political posture. It's business. The logic is unforgiving. Go where the profits are, where governments welcome expansion, where passengers are eager and plentiful. In Southeast Asia, the skies are busier than ever. Cities like Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, and Manila are seeing record airport traffic as they invest in world-class terminals and open new corridors to Africa and the Middle East. Africa itself is no longer a forgotten frontier in aviation. Nations like Ethiopia and Rwanda have committed to building themselves into continental hubs with long-term infrastructure planning and growing networks of global alliances. These regions aren't just adding routes, they're shaping the future of air travel. Airlines are forging long-term partnerships, securing airport slots, training staff, and placing orders for aircraft with specific routes in mind. They're not just experimenting, they're betting, and the United States is no longer part of the bet. The consequences go far beyond empty terminals or fewer arrivals. They bleed into diplomacy, investment, and culture. When the planes stop coming, so do the people. And when the people stop coming, conversations are lost. Deals are left unmade. Universities enroll fewer students from abroad. Cultural festivals become more local. The slow fade of international presence becomes more than an economic loss. It becomes a perceptual shift in how the world engages with America. This isn't the result of any one policy, but of an accumulating rigidity. High operational costs, uncertain visa processes, and trade barriers have all contributed to an environment that no longer rewards ambition. Airlines, that once considered America the crown jewel of their route network, now see it as a burden, costly, bureaucratic, and unreliable. The domestic travel sector can't fill the vacuum. While internal flights within the US remain busy, they cannot replicate the value or volume of international traffic. A family visiting from Europe or Asia brings with them hotel bookings, shopping, restaurants, museums, guided tours. They fuel entire microeconomies. Domestic travelers, more price-sensitive and less frequent, cannot match that economic density. Airports that expanded in anticipation of growth are now scaling back. Staff are being cut. Retail space sits idle. Taxi queues are shorter. And for cities that had branded themselves as international gateways, there's a new, unwelcome question. What now? Some point to future recovery. They suggest this is a temporary downturn, but airlines don't operate on quarterly optimism. They plan years ahead. Once a route is cut and planes are reassigned, the return is neither quick nor guaranteed. Carriers don't suspend operations to wait, they leave. If this trend holds, more US cities will find themselves disconnected from the global grid. The change will feel subtle at first. A cancelled flight here, an empty gate there. But the long-term effects will be harder to ignore. Fewer flights mean fewer reasons for the world to visit. Fewer connections mean fewer opportunities to be part of the conversations that shape global culture, commerce, and cooperation. Reversing this decline won't be easy. It will take more than slogans or stimulus packages. It will require rebuilding trust with foreign carriers, rethinking trade policies, simplifying entry procedures, and rediscovering what made the United States a destination in the first place. The longer the silence grows in these once thriving terminals, the louder the message becomes. The world is moving on. The United States must decide whether it's content to be bypassed or willing to adapt and rejoin the future it helped build. In many ways, the current trajectory reflects a deeper shift in perception, where once the United States represented opportunity and access, it is now viewed by many in the global aviation industry as a difficult partner, expensive to serve, slow to adapt, and increasingly inward-looking. The market that once promised growth is now seen as static. For airlines navigating a competitive and uncertain world, agility is everything, and the US no longer offers that agility. Executives in boardrooms across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East are no longer asking how to expand in America. They're asking if it's worth it at all. And in many cases, the answer is becoming no. This isn't just an economic assessment, it's a reflection of the mood in international aviation circles, where the focus has turned towards cities and regions that offer more predictable returns and fewer bureaucratic hurdles. As these decisions accumulate, their weight grows. A dropped route here and there may seem manageable, but once patterns emerge, once multiple airlines begin exiting the same markets, once routes disappear without warning, it becomes harder for cities and regions to claw back relevance. Airports lose leverage in negotiations. Marketing budgets can't compete with lost connectivity. And even when conditions improve, the stigma of having been abandoned tends to linger. The impact on local economies intensifies over time. Regions that once benefited from high-yield international passengers now face gaps in hotel occupancy, falling retail sales, and dwindling business travel. Conference centers book fewer global events. Local universities receive fewer international applications. The drop-off is uneven but widespread. And for cities outside of the coastal powerhouses, the losses are especially acute. What's perhaps most striking is how quiet the withdrawal has been. Airlines are not making dramatic announcements. They are not holding press conferences. Routes are quietly pulled from booking platforms. Flights stop appearing on departure boards. Airport staff are simply told the gate will no longer be needed. The absence is unceremonious but total. For a country that once defined the golden age of air travel, this slow retreat carries symbolic weight. The jet age was in many ways a product of American innovation and ambition. Now, the energy that once fueled that growth is being redirected elsewhere. Countries that were once destinations are becoming launch pads. Cities that were once secondary are becoming primary. And the center of gravity in global aviation is shifting without hesitation. Some believe the answer lies in simply waiting out the turbulence. That when economic conditions stabilize, the airlines will return. But global networks are not built on nostalgia. They are built on present-day strategy. And right now, those strategies are moving in other directions. Toward Africa, toward Southeast Asia, toward regions where the future feels more open, more promising, more flexible. If you want to stay ahead of the curve with real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and expert insights on global flashpoints like this one, make sure to subscribe. This is just the beginning.